नमस्कार। आज धन्वंतरी भगवान का वर्धापन दिन है, तो पहले उनका स्मरण करते हैं और धनतेरस के लिए महालक्ष्मी जी का श्री सूक्त। ओम नमामि धन्वन्तरिमादिदेवं सुरासुरैर्वन्दितपादपङ्कजम् लोके जरायुर्भयमृत्युनाशनं धातारमीशं विविधौषधीनाम् हिरण्यवर्णां हरिणीं सुवर्णरजतस्रजाम् चन्द्रां हिरण्मयीं लक्ष्मीं जातवेदो महावः तां महावः जातवेदो लक्ष्मीमनपगामिनीम् यस्यां हिरण्यं विन्देयं गामश्वं पुरुषानहम् अश्वपूर्वां रथमध्यां हस्तिनादप्रबोधिनीम् श्रियं देवीमुपह्वये श्रीर्मा देवीर्जुषदाम् कंसोऽस्मितां हिरण्यप्राकारामार्द्रां ज्वलन्तीं तृप्तां तर्पयन्तीं पद्मे स्थितां पद्मवर्णां तामिहोपह्वये श्रियम् चन्द्रां प्रभासां यशसा ज्वलन्तीं श्रियं लोके देवजुष्टामुदाराम् तां पद्मिनीमीं शरणमहं प्रपद्ये अलक्ष्मीर्मे नश्यतां त्वां वृणे आदित्यवर्णे तपसोऽधिजातो वनस्पतिस्तव वृक्षोऽथ बिल्वः तस्य फलानि तपसानुदन्तु मायान्तरायाश्च बाह्या अलक्ष्मीः उपैतुमान् देवसखः कीर्तिश्च मणिना सह प्रादुर्भूतोऽसुराष्ट्रेऽस्मिन् कीर्तिमृद्धिं ददातु मे क्षुत्पिपासामलान् ज्येष्ठामलक्ष्मीन्नाशयाम्यहम् अभूतिमसमृद्धिं च सर्वान्निर्णुद मे गृहात् गन्धद्वारान् दुराधर्षान् नित्यपुष्टाङ्करीषिणीम् ईश्वरीगां सर्वभूतानां तामिहोपह्वये श्रियम् मनसः काममाकूतिं वाचः सत्यमशीमहि पशूनागरूपमन्नस्य मयि श्रीश्रयतां यशः कर्दमेन प्रजा भूता मयि सम्भव कर्दमा श्रियं वासय मे कुले मातरं पद्ममालिनीम् आपस्रजन्तु स्निग्धानि चिक्लीतवसने गृहे निचदेवीं मातरं श्रियं वासय मे कुले आर्द्रां यः करिणीं जष्टिं सुवर्णां हेममालिनीं सूर्यां हिरण्मयीं लक्ष्मीं जातवेदो महावः आर्द्रां पुष्करिणीं पुष्टिं पिङ्गलां पद्ममालिनीं चन्द्रां हिरण्मयीं लक्ष्मीं जातवेदो महावः तां महावः जातवेदो लक्ष्मीमनपगामिनीं यस्यां हिरण्यं प्रभूतं गावो दास्योऽश्वान् विन्देयं पुरुषानहम् यशुचिः प्रजतो भूत्वा जुहुयादाज्यमन्वहम् सूक्तं पञ्चदशरचञ्च श्रीकामस्तततं जपेत महालक्ष्मी च विद्महे विष्णुपत्नी च धीमहि तन्नो लक्ष्मीः प्रचोदयात्। लक्ष्मी कुबेराभ्यां नमः।
Yes, Rajan bhai.
We can start. Good afternoon. Today we were going to talk about the gold nugget and the importance of the perineum. Now, before we start, we should try to understand from where do we get the energy for transformation. Energy which has been given to us cannot really work for transformation. So we have to extract that energy, get that energy from different sources. The main source of energy for us right now is the food we eat. And the food, the first transformation which comes out of the food is magnetism. The second transformation is motor electricity or thought energy. The third transformation is reflex electricity or emotional energy. And the last transformation, which comes out of food, is the sex energy. So from the food we eat, we get these four kinds of energy. And these energies are in a very crude form. So if we take, for example, magnetism. So magnetism, it gives me the power to hold a thought. So when I'm holding a thought in the mind, that thought has a form, and I want to hold that form. And it is magnetism which holds that form together. But the quality of magnetism which I produce from the food with which I eat may not be good enough for the higher practices of yoga. So if I want to design a house, it may allow me to hold a thought form so I can visualize a house and try to build a house. But when I want to enter into a higher practice of, say, dharana, then that magnetism which I've extracted from the food which I've eaten may not be useful over there. I'll have to have a higher quality of magnetism to hold a state of dharana. Similarly with motor electricity and reflex electricity. Actually, we have no control over reflex electricity. All our emotions are mainly just mechanical reactions. So when we start walking on the spiritual path, we need energy, and we have to extract that energy from different sources. So I think previously we had talked about that there's a lot of energy lying stored up in the blockages of the muscles because the nerves move through the muscles. And as we relax the muscles, this energy is released and we can use this energy to enter into higher states of meditation. So that is one source of energy. I think somebody's on mute. It's okay. Now say we go to another source of energy, and that could be our negative emotions, which come from negative sanskars inside. And every memory pattern or every sanskar which I'm holding on in my unconscious mind, it is stored with a certain amount of energy. And when I free myself from the sanskar through conscious effort. It may be just a small pattern of irritation or anger, but as I observe that and free myself from it, that pattern gets destroyed, and the energy which was holding that pattern is released, and I use this energy to go higher in my meditative states. So when we are moving on the spiritual path, we have to know which are the sources of energy which help us to move higher on the path to a higher state of consciousness. And it definitely not the food we eat play a very minor role in giving us the energy to walk the spiritual path. Now, one of the biggest sources of energy is the perineum. The perineum in the physical body, it is the depository for energy, and it coincides with the organs of elimination, the organs of procreation, and on a little subtle level, it holds what we call the Muladhara Chakra. And the Muladhara, as we have seen before when we took the corrective exercises, the Muladhara is the repository, or you can say it is the place, the library, which holds all the kleshas. So there's all the sanskars are formed out of those kleshas. So the Muladhara is the depository for a high amount of energy. So Mr. Tavaria Sahib realized this, and he found out that we must unlock this power if we want to move into meditation, if we want to hold a state of self-remembering or self-observation, then we need a source of energy, and the perineum is a very, very big source of energy. So for that, he created the gold nugget exercise. So today we are going to talk about the perineum and the gold nugget, and which he taught in public, and also which he taught in private to few of his students, the Vajroli Mudra and the Ashwini Mudra. So these three exercises, from the physical level to the psychic level, these are the three pillars on which our perineum stands. Right? Now, he used to say that our sex energy needs a very big correction. There has to be a very big correction in our sex energy. And this cannot be done unless we awaken and regenerate the perineum area. We will divide the sex into three parts: the sex center, the sex energy, and the sex act. So today we are going to also talk about the sex energy. We are not going to talk about the sex center or the sex act. Now, I'll just read from his Purpose of Birth and Death. How can we correctly concentrate our sex energy? The holy ground in our body-brain system is not the heart or the brain. It is the sex center, the area called the perineum. It is the prana circulation at Muladhara and Swadhisthana that happens here. This area in the astral body coincides with the physical body, and it is a depository for energy. Its higher invisible purpose is to be utilized and to be awakened. And we must make conscious efforts to awaken and regenerate this area. Right? Now I'm going to just read out something from, I was reading about what you call a conductor of a choir, and he was conducting the music, and the choir, they were all these singers in the choir, they were coming to the climax, the last scene in the whole opera. And they had to take the pitch to a very, high pitch. And this choir master, the one who is conducting the choir, is saying, no, squeeze it in, push it up. He may not have known what he was talking about, or whether he knew what he was talking about. But he was talking about the perineum. He was saying, when you come to that pitch in your singing, you don't want the sound to come from the throat. You don't want it to come from the larynx. You don't want it to come from the stomach. You want it to come from the perineum. It is that sound has to be a byproduct of the transformation of sex energy. And it is that sound which takes you into higher states. So he's saying, no, squeeze it, push it up. So he's talking about the abdominopelvic area. And it is this area which we have to regenerate, work upon, especially if we are practicing mantra yoga, because those subtleties of the mantra will only come if we can generate sound from that area. Right? Otherwise, the mantra will be from the lips, from the throat, right? But it won't come from that very fine creative energy which lies at the base of the perineum. Now, some of the techniques in Hatha Yoga of how to transform that. I'm not going to go into these techniques, I'm just to give a background. Supposing I was just sitting silently, say, relaxed a couple of seconds ago, but I coughed a little. And when I coughed a little, what happens when you cough? When we cough, the perineum pushes up against the pelvic organs. The abdominal muscles squeeze. And suddenly there is a kind of push and pull created inside, which gives that force to the cough which is coming out. And it is this force which we need in our spiritual journey, and it is that force which comes from the perineum. Similarly, in Hatha Yoga, there are techniques to to directly control, work with the nadi which makes us cough, and also the nadi which makes us sneeze. Because when we are on the verge of sneezing, there's a sudden build-up vacuum inside. Suddenly these organs are moving in a certain way, and from that sex energy, there is a push up and we sneeze outside. So it is these two actions which, connect us to that sex energy. And in Hatha Yoga, there are techniques where we can directly work with those nadis which make us cough and sneeze.
That's why sneezing causes such a relaxation after this.
So the perineum is the area for the root chakra, the Muladhara Chakra. It gives us physical strength and it grounds us in presence. All meditations start not from observing thought, not from observing the workings of the mind. Before we observe the workings of the mind, am I present or am I not present? Right? And is there a sensitivity of I being present, observing or not? If that sensitivity of presence is not there, right, then the very meditation could become a new form of identification. And it is here that when we divide the attention a little and we hold that presence and meditate at the same time. So this holding of presence, this grounding of ourselves in ourselves is done by the Muladhara Chakra. And that is why this perineum is very important. Now, if we can start working with this muscle, it will bring us tremendous, what you call, physical, emotional, and spiritual benefit. In many of us, we have forgotten that we have a perineum. And especially in ladies, because after they have a child with their childbirth, and they learn many exercises, to get rid of the stretches on the stomach and get rid of the fat which has accumulated. But I don't think any of the exercises directly work with strengthening the pelvic floor. And it's very important, because otherwise the perineum starts sagging, and the what you call the elasticity of the perineum starts becoming weak. And so it happens in men also, and at a certain age they may start feeling urinary incontinence or something. And for this they have to work with the perineum area, the pelvic floor area. Now, if the perineum becomes loose and starts sagging, then its capacity to send signals to the brain nearly goes away. And then we don't really have a sensitivity of our own perineum. Today, science calls this as sensory motor amnesia. A certain part of the body is there, but we have forgotten that it's there. We are not receiving any, what you call, brain signals from that part of the body. Now, we won't take this to, I'm just using this as an example. Don't take this as, what you call a judgmental thing on something. But say in our home, so we have people who come and maybe they wash the dishes or they clean the home. And if you have a good person who comes to wash the dishes and clean the home, then really you don't have to bother about it. You don't have to think about it, right? That has she cleaned the home well today, or has she washed the dishes, or etc. Similarly, in our everyday activities, there are so many things that are washing the dishes and cleaning the home, like brushing the teeth, wearing the clothes, right? And small things in life, getting in the car, etc., etc. And sometimes we spend too much of energy in doing these things. And when we activate the perineum, over a period of time, the perineum starts working as a brain. As we work with the perineum, it starts working as a brain, and it takes care of all the small things in our life for which we don't have to pay attention. We don't have to really bother about whether we bought a new toothpaste or anything. The perineum looks after everything. It's sort of a new brain which allows the other two brains, this brain and the heart, to relax in so many spheres of life, and that allows the energy of the other brains to do other activities. So that is why it is given the name tail brain. And there are many modern gurus who today talk about activating the tail brain and using the tail brain. Now, how do we create energy? The whole, process is that we create tension somewhere, and on the release of that tension, there is a sudden burst of energy. So supposing in the, golden nugget, I'm pulling in the lower abdomen, and on the release of the lower abdomen, there'll be a sudden burst of energy in the body-brain system, right? So in the body, to create energy, we need to pull in one direction and push in another direction. Supposing we are doing Tavariaji 6th exercise, this exercise. So we are pushing down with the throat, this neck area, and we are pushing up with the chest area. So the neck area is pushing down, the chest area is pushing up, and on the release of that bandha, there is a sudden burst of energy in that area, and we utilize that energy. Similarly, if we check his attentive tension and relaxation exercises, we go tense, 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 and then suddenly we release it, there is a sudden movement of energy. So to create energy at the physical level in our body, the idea is to tense and relax certain muscles. And when we follow this in a scientific way, tensing and relaxing certain muscles, we release energy at certain points and we can use that energy. Now, there must be a little bit of self-observation over here. And we must ask ourselves, we don't have to, ask anyone else. What is the quality of my sex energy? Now, if my movements in life are aggressive movements, I walk aggressively, I talk aggressively, right? Then aggressiveness is a sign that there is something wrong in the sex energy. If I get irritated on small matters all the time, right, then somewhere there's a blockage in sex energy. If I'm angry and negative or obstinate all the time, right, then I know I have to work with my sex energy. If I'm agitated all the time, in a state of agitation all the time, then again I have to work with my sex energy. I may be violent, right? Egoistically violent. And it's possible. And there again, I have to look at it. And one of the very fine ways of looking at the quality of sex energy is the way I laugh. And I don't know if any of you have gone to a laughing club or something. These people in the garden, early morning, they're laughing. And many times when you hear certain people's laughter, they are really not laughing. 9 out of 10 people are not laughing, they're crying. Right? I mean, they are throwing out rubbish which they cannot separate from and observe inside, which they cannot hold on inside. So all the food for self-observation, when we go to a laughing club, we throw it out. And here we have to be very careful, because some people's laughter is a very hideous laughter. Some people's laughter is it upsets us. And the quality of laughter, it tells us the state of our sex energy. So, and finally, the tone of our voice. Is there obstinacy in my voice? Is there tragedy in my voice? Is there self-pity in my voice? Am I talking in an egoistic way? Is there aggressiveness in my voice? So all these are characteristics that somewhere my sex energy is blocked, somewhere it is suppressed. And if the sex energy is suppressed, I can tell you one thing, it is continuously pouring toxins in the brain, right? So this, if we have to do a self-examination, and if we see any of this within ourselves, then we have to, then the right way is to start Tavariya Sahib's gold nugget exercise immediately. It's very, very important, because it is this energy which has separated from Shiva. It has come down the backbone and it has made its place of residence at the perineum. And it is only this energy which can go back to Shiva, right? So we have to start working with that energy. And the best way to start is through the gold nugget. Later on, we should progress to the Ashwini Mudra and also the Vajroli Mudra. So we have seen that energy is created whenever opposing forces meet, they touch and they separate. And one of the prime examples is the trampoline. We can have the trampoline. See, he pushes down and then he moves up, and that is here. Now take the perineum in the body, the perineum to be a trampoline. Take the perineum to be a trampoline. Now in the gold nugget exercise, we pull in the lower abdomen. So when we pull in the lower abdomen, the perineum rises. So there's a pulling in of the lower abdomen, and there's a rising of the perineum, and there's a lot of force created in that area. And then for and what we do is we hold that position with shallow breathing for 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, right? As we shallow breathe fast, we are rotating that held energy for a period of time. There is a kind of centrifugal force created. The impurities are extracted from that energy. And when we release the whole bandha, the energy rises and we make use of that energy. And so the whole gold nugget is nothing but this trampoline effect, the trampoline effect. And it is the pure energy of creativity, right, which rises. And this we can see in every asana of yoga. There is a period where there is a stretch or there is a pull, and then there is a release. And the whole secret of the asana is between the stretch and the release. Now, supposing we take the scale of the earth, there is one pull which is trying to take us away from gravity, and that is called the power of electromagnetism. And there is one pull which is trying to take us down in the earth, and that is the pull of gravity. Every disciple passes through gravity, then he passes through electromagnetism, and then he passes through grace. When the disciple is new, or we can say when the student is new, he is totally in control of the law of gravity. He will try to sit in meditation, but his thoughts will go all over the place. The law of gravity takes control of it. He will try to control his negative emotions, not express his negative emotions. He will try a little, and then a rush of anger or a rush of irritation will come and take over him, and he'll give in to it. And initially, every time he tries to rise a little, he'll fall back on the ground, and he comes under the law of gravity. Now, over a period of time, the disciple moves from the law of gravity to the law of electromagnetism. And he sort of forces in him start aligning themselves. That is, he starts all forces within himself, they start aligning himself. I will just give you a certain example that science says that every material has magnetism. Now, but we cannot see it. We see it only in iron. So when you magnetize an iron, all the north molecules go to north and all the south molecules come to south. And that is why we see, in iron, there are two poles, the north pole and the south pole in a magnetized piece of iron. But we don't see that in a piece of plastic. Because in plastic, every north pole cancels another south pole. So now if we were somehow in the plastic able to, shift all the north atoms to the north and all the south atoms to the south, then the plastic would also exhibit magnetic properties. Similarly, as the disciple starts observing himself, in his mind, on the plane of his mind, all his thoughts and emotions start coming into order. Everything north goes to north, everything south goes to south, right? Everything goes into the right place. One of the, byproducts of rising in consciousness is that we see a certain order coming in our thinking, a certain order coming in our emotions, right? Those emotions, certain order coming in our sensitivities, we cannot get excited so easily, right? And so this inner order is the byproduct of rising in consciousness. Today, our thoughts are in a chaos, our emotions are in a chaos, and as long as they are in a chaos, we are under the law of gravity. So the disciple moves from gravity, he moves to electromagnetism. And as the energy rises towards the top of the head, when it enters this field over here, then he moves from the law of magnetism or electromagnetism to the law of grace. Then the disciple does not have to do anything. The very electromagnetic pull of the divine will take him forward. Now he just surrenders to the divine and the divine takes him forward. So every student passes through these three steps on his journey: gravity, magnetism, grace. And once we are in that field of grace, then there is really no real action which you have to take. You're slowly pulled towards that divine source. So when we look at the body within us, there are two lines of force. One force which takes us up is called electromagnetism, and one force which takes us down is called gravity. The force which takes us down in Taoism is called as yang. And the force which takes us up is called as yin. Now the yang energy, it moves through what is called the conception vessel over here, and it goes down and it touches the perineum. From the perineum, it rebounds up and it goes from the back, what is called the governing vessel, and moves up. And this circulation of energy on the earth, it happens, and it happens within the human being also. And that is why, because it is at the perineum that the yang energy is transformed into the yin energy, and it is pushed up like a, what do you call, a trampoline, that we must take care of our perineum and regenerate our perineum. It is like the ocean floor where this is happening. So you can see on the earth, there is this huge, what do you call, torus of energy all over, and it is these lines of energy which are coming down, hitting the bottom of the ocean and rising up again. And this is the, what do you call, movement which is happening outside and within ourselves. Now, so the perineum is the trampoline of our body. It is the ocean floor. Now, when we want to rise in consciousness, we have to attach our consciousness to these lines of force which are coming down on the perineum, hitting it and coming up again. And it is like riding a wave, a surf wave, and we move up into meditation through holding our consciousness on one of these lines of force. Now, I want to talk about something else over here. Supposing we are starting any new venture in life. Supposing I may be starting a, say, new business or a shop, anything, or maybe a new job or whatever. Or I may be going for an interview. Now, we don't want to, what do you call, attach to a yang line and go to the interview. When we go to the interview, we want to attach ourselves to a yin line and go for the interview. When we cut the ribbon for our shop, the new shop which we are going to open, we don't want to cut the ribbon when a yang line is going down. We want to cut the ribbon when the yin line is moving up. And when we attach that, then it brings good fortune, it brings happiness. I don't know if I'm coming across it. So it is these lines which are rebounding within us all the time. And we have to, even we may not be interested in any spiritual journey whatsoever. We may just be interested in material pursuits in life. But even then, to gain more material pursuit, we will have to attach ourselves to some of the lines which are moving up. And that is why I'm talking about the perineum, because everything starts from this physical diamond-shaped area of the body, which is a membrane, and we don't want that membrane to lose its elasticity. Otherwise, nothing can rebound from that membrane. Now, the perineum is a group of muscles, diamond-shaped, and it covers the pelvic floor. And when we pull in the perineum, when we pull in the lower abdomen, when the perineum starts rising, we are stimulating both sensory motor and autonomic nervous system nerves. And it brings a balance between the sympathetic and parasympathetic. Now here I have to say something which Tavariya Sahib used to say, that every 6 months, 100 sex cells get the chance to become brain cells. Now, this is not something which science will tell us. And he says, when this process stops in a normal man, then the brain starts degenerating, right? And we start getting what you call degeneration of the brain, what we call Alzheimer's or whatever. And so that was his reason for Alzheimer's. Now, the more our sex energy is blocked, this process is going to stop. Every 6 months, 100 cells becoming. And we can, through the gold nugget exercise and through the exercises for regenerating the perineum, we can hasten this process. Not just 100 cells in 6 months, but much, much faster than that, right? Now, Taoism says that when these, what you call, these rebounding lines, which they call as yin lines, when they start moving up, they move through 32 meridians. Indian yoga says that they meet at a certain point and they distribute amongst nadis throughout the body. So just by pulling in the perineum, what you call lower abdomen, and lifting the perineum, it will have a big effect on our endocrine system, the limbic system, and all our emotions and the cerebral cortex. Many people, when you shake their hands, they are perspiring. Many people, the pulse is very fast. And all this will change with this one exercise. The whole sympathetic nervous system will come into balance. And of course, all the effects for prolapse of uterus, bladder, etc., etc. Now, how many of us stop for a moment every day and just go down, close our eyes, and go down in the perineum and just rotate our attention there a little, sense the area. Another thing which we can do is that when we use the toilet in the morning or whenever, we can take a little oil and massage that area very light. And this massaging itself will have a profound effect on our digestive system and other systems of the body. So just taking a little bland oil and massaging the perineum for a few minutes every day, and that itself will start the process of regeneration. Then close your eyes and then just try to sense the perineum, rotate energy a little over there in the perineum, feel it, right? Then pull in the lower abdomen and feel the perineum rising, release the lower abdomen, again pull it in, feel it rising, release, let it fall down again. You see, we lose a lot of energy, good energy. One of the biggest losses of energy is daydreaming and brooding. Another big loss of energy is in sexual fantasizing. But the more our perineum area becomes powerful, the more we will be able to control these leakages of energy. And be able to remain in the present moment more and more. Now, I don't know how many of us are practicing the 3-step rhythmic breathing, but the 3-step rhythmic breathing, it's very funny, but Tavariaji Sahib has put 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and it is a 5-second breath, but the count is 6 where we don't count 4. And it's one of the ways of looking at this is that there are 6 pulse beats in 5 seconds. So that is why he has put 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, right? Because it is the relationship between breath and pulse, swara and nadi. Right? Another way of looking at this is that there is an exchange of prana at 4 in the perineum. And that is why he has not counted 4. So when you're doing the rhythmic breathing, over a period of time, the more we sense our perineum, we will feel that there is an exchange of prana happening at the perineum at the count 4. So that 4 which we don't count is the count where we have sensitivity of the perineum. So this was, I just want to go into a pre-sensing a little, but before that, I'll just cover what we said. I hope I have taught the gold nugget, or should I teach it now? Have I taught the gold nugget to you? Have I taught it? I don't know. Hema, have we taught the gold nugget? I'll just repeat it a little. One sec, I'll take this. Okay, put your hands here, right? Still can't see.
Sir, we still can't see you. Little back.
Here below the navel. This is the navel. Put your hands here below the navel and pull in this area. Pull in this area. Pull in this area. Breathe out completely. Now, to come to that point, first take a deep breath. Take a deep breath and then pull in this area and breathe out. Breathe out. And hold the breath out and keep this pulled in and try to reach 40 seconds. Right? It may take a few months to reach 40 seconds. Okay, we'll sit down now. Once we have reached 40 seconds, then keep pulling in, don't release that bandha there, and breathe, fast, shallow breathing. In this breathing, breathe out only, don't breathe in. Not deep, shallow, fast. And this lower abdomen is still pulled in. The lower abdomen is still pulled in. It is still pulled in. And we keep. Okay. Very, very powerful exercise. And please start practicing this. This will over a period of time, change this whole pelvic area. And it will change the brain. Later on, we can progress to the Ashwini Mudra and Vajroli Mudra. And I will take a session on both those mudras later on. So please do start this exercise. It's very important. And also on YouTube, there is one, video where Tavariaji Sahib himself is teaching this exercise. So I would request everyone to, it's only a 10-15 minute video, but if you could go through that video, and he's teaching someone to do this exercise. Now, when sex energy starts transforming, the higher form of sex energy is perfume. It, what you call, transforms. Somebody sent a message. It transforms into a perfume-like thing. You know, when we read the Bhagavad, and in the Bhagavad, there is this beautiful, what do you call, of Ras Leela, the stage of Ras Leela. And there are more than 100 gopis. And each gopi feels that Krishna is dancing with her. So, I mean, Krishna was one, but each gopi felt that Krishna was personally, what do you call, dancing with her. And it is this quality of a transmutated sex energy. So, when you open a bottle of perfume anywhere in the room, supposing you open a bottle of perfume right at the end of the room, even before you finished opening the, what do you call, the bottle, the whole cap of the bottle, if I'm sitting at the other end of the room, I'll get the smell of the perfume. I'll get the fragrance of the perfume. So perfume has a quality of being with 100 gopis at the same time. And that is what the Bhagavad is telling us, that this is the state which Krishna is in, that his sex energy is everywhere at the same time. It is no longer the ordinary sex energy. It is transformed into something higher. Similarly, as sex energy transforms, we will see consciousness is one thing, rising in consciousness is one thing, but it must be followed by a transformation in sex energy. Then what happens is there is a rise in consciousness, and there is the, what do you call, flowing of perfume. Flowing of perfume means a softness comes in our life. A sort of playfulness comes in our life. So in our talking, in our touching, in our movements, in everything we do in life, the softness of perfume comes in. Nothing is now, what do you call, agitated. Nothing is now any longer out of rhythm. Everything is in balance. And so with consciousness, this transformation of sex energy brings the quality of softness of perfume in our lives. Now I want us to practice one more thing, and this has a direct effect on transformation of sex energy. And do it for 5-10 minutes every day. Do it for 5 minutes every day. And the best time to do this is when you're having your cup of tea in the morning, right? And supposing, the cup went away, but supposing this is the cup of tea, right? And I take my hand to the cup of tea and I drink the tea. Now, it's a small thing, but it brings about a tremendous change. I'm not taking my hand to the cup of tea. I'm taking my hand there because my hand wants to go there. So there'll be two actions. I'll first automatically go to the cup of tea and then I'll pause. I'll say, wait a minute. The hand went because of the tea. And I'll come back and I'll tell the hand will move. I am going there because I want to go there. And you will feel a flowing movement of the hand going to the cup of tea. Over a period of time, a kind of volition will come in our actions, right? You come in the room and I look at you, but you come in the room, I don't look at you, I look at you because I want to look at you. And can you see this small gap where consciousness has entered in everything? It will start coming. And this movement will bring about a tremendous change. So we start from practicing with our teacup every morning. So I suppose that 1 cup of hot tea, we will take about 10 sips from the tea. So 10 times we will have practiced in the morning. Every time the hand goes there, automatically we'll pause, come back. Not because of the tea, I want to go there. And this small practice in the morning, the tea practice itself will bring up, as if you see, then even if you can't see the cup of tea, you don't know that the cup of tea, somebody comes and puts the cup of tea, your eyes are closed, your hands know that the cup of tea is there, and they will of their own volition now go. A kind of pre-sensing will come into the, the organs of action, the legs and the hands. And it is this pre-sensing is because there is some transformation in the sex energy. It has risen up into the organs of action just through this small practice which we can do every morning. Another place where we can practice is the phone rings. Now, for everyone, first make a rule that we will not pick up the phone till the 3rd ring. We won't pick up the phone till the 3rd ring. Of course, many times we are waiting for, and we just automatically start the phone. So we'll make this thing kind of inner, that we won't pick up the phone till the 3rd ring. Now 2 rings will give us the time, pause, not because of the phone. I'm picking it up of my own volition, from my own volition. I'm making a conscious decision to pick up the phone. So this is another very good place where we can practice, because with the mobile phones, it just comes and we are so automatic with it's become a new automatic action with us, a mechanical action with us. And it is a good place to practice bringing in a little bit of consciousness. So I suppose in these 2 places we can, bring in a little bit of practice. Now, and in a way, this is a practice of mindfulness also. It is a different way of practice of mindfulness also, right? So Tavariya Sahib used to call this practice as pre-sensing, right? And over a period of time, we will start developing a kind of prior perception. Now, I have talked before that in the morning, don't open your eyes immediately when you wake up. Keep lying down on the bed. Feel the subtle body inside. Just sense it for some time, right? Now, if we have done that practice in the morning, then when we are drinking the tea, we'll pause and we'll say, my hand is not going there because of the tea. I'm consciously taking my hand there. And in that movement, there will be a kind of inner wave-like movement, a kind of prior perception. And if we do practice this over a period of time, right, you will develop some little bit of intuitive perception because of this exercise. Right? And this will help us in so many decisions of our life. In so many places, we just decide as a reaction without pausing, without allowing consciousness to come in. But now we will pause and allow consciousness and allow the power of intuition to come in. And it will develop the power of intuition. So this few exercises where we can work with our sex energy, because sex energy has that softness, that the power of absorbing what is going to happen in the next moment. And I'll give you a small example. Once we were returning on the train from Mysore to Bangalore, and there were 3 seats on this side and 2 seats on this side. So on this side, at the window seat was Dr. Atre, in between was Tavaria Sahib, and on his right, I was sitting. On that side, one more person, Mr. Angrish, was with us, and he was sitting 1 seat ahead. So it was a little diagonal, and he was on the window seat, and next to him, the seat was empty. So Tavaria Sahib had this sense of humor, and he gave me a hard push like this. He said, "You know what is going to happen?" So I said, "Sir, what is going to happen?" So he says, "In 5 minutes, a beautiful girl is going to come and sit next to Anguish. Then you see what happens to him." And really, in 5 minutes, this one young woman comes. She has bangles from here to here, and this hair done up in a certain way, and a flashy dress. And I was looking at her, and she came and sat next to Angrish. Now, if you see in the trains, that middle armrest is a very thin armrest in the chair car. And Angrish would take his hand and he would go like this. She would put her hand over there, and he would move a little bit like this, and we were laughing away. And this is called prioperception. This is prioperception. Of course, he had developed it to a very high degree. I don't think we can reach that state of what he had. But what I'm trying to say is that we can, by doing these small practices, we can develop this little bit of intuitive thing, which will definitely help us in making decisions throughout the day. Right? Now, finally, before stopping, I just want to talk about one other thing. Sir, someday, if you give me permission, I would like to talk in depth about the sex center, sex energy, and sex act, and how to use the sex act to pump energy to different parts of the body and to awaken those parts. So one day, if you do allow me, I'll of course have to be very free in that talk.
Sure, Rajan Bhai. I'm sure all of us, everybody is an adult here and they would be interested in really learning.
So now, as we awaken this perineum area and we learn to pull in the lower abdomen, and this pumping action we learn, we can, through visualization, through volition, because when we visualize a thought and when we add prana to that thought, and that movement is that we can pump energy to different areas of the body. And this will awaken channels within us, which we may not have used these channels our whole life, certain channels our whole life, and we can use that, right? So one day when we go deeper into the sex center, I'll talk about how this is done. Now, what I want to say that there are 4 diaphragms in the body. The cranial diaphragm, the cervical diaphragm, the thoracic diaphragm, and the pelvic diaphragm, the perineum. And all are connected. So as we awaken the perineum, we are affecting 3 different other diaphragms within the body. So when we are holding the gold nugget for 40 seconds, then in that vacuum, all these diaphragms are coming into a kind of trampoline effect. And when we release it, so the cranial diaphragm is releasing cerebrospinal fluid throughout the brain cells, right? The other diaphragms are doing their functions. And in this way, the health of the whole body is affected through this one thing. And especially the cervical diaphragm, the tongue. Now, there is a big relation with the tongue and the top of the mouth and the central the brain, right? There's a mantra over here through which, when we do Omkar, we can send up vibrations through that. It can move up through that. So also, when we react, mechanical reaction is a form of attain, what we call attain impulse, and that mechanical reaction can also be transformed. So just by working with the perineum in the gold nugget, we are affecting all these 4 diaphragms in the body, and it brings about a tremendous difference in everything. So now, one of the experiments which we did when Tavariaji Sahib was there is that we, in the gold nugget, in this pulling in, and we would hold that, don't do it, but he would hold for more than 1 minute. And we would put a blood pressure meter. And at the point of release, for that fraction of a second, the blood pressure, you're creating this big vacuum in your body-brain system. And that point of vacuum, these 4, what do you call, diaphragms are aligned, and then sudden release of energy, right? And if we could direct that energy for healing to certain parts of the body, of course, it would be totally different, right? But that is why I wanted to talk this, take this talk on the perineum, the importance of the perineum, and even whatever age we are in, we may have neglected it till now, but through the gold nugget exercise, we can start working with the perineum again. Later on, one day we'll take a talk on sex, and we'll talk on how to use the perineum to pump air, what do you call, energy to different parts of the body, and how to use that energy. I think I'll stop here. If there are any questions, I'll take questions. I'm sorry about the Yoga Sutra this time, but Keta was in Delhi, and I'm very bad at, I have to make some slides of Tavariaji Sahib's brain diagram, which I should have done long ago. So, but we'll do it this week. So I want to connect his sutra with the brain diagram. That is, so I had to take a break from the Yoga Sutra.
Any questions? You can unmute yourself.
Namaskar, I had a question. Sorry.
Yes.
Well, first of all, wonderful class on perineum. Thank you so much. Because now I had a question that when we do it, how long, like 3 minutes is okay, the shallow breathing out, 3 minutes or 2 minutes? Or how long can we do it for? Or how short should we do it?
If you can reach up to 3 minutes, if you can reach up to 3 minutes, it would be wonderful. I know people.
Yeah, so
I know people who are doing it even for 10 minutes, and I know one person who's doing it for half an hour. So
after just continuous holding. Okay. So anyway, 3 minutes.
But you don't have to do that, but you can definitely reach up to 3 minutes.
No. 3 minutes, 3 minutes is fine for now.
Yeah.
But what I was saying is, okay, we've done it once, we release it after 2 or 3 minutes. Do we do it again? How many more times can we continuously do it?
Continuously, I would suggest you do it once, but I would be very happy if you've eaten an early dinner and you do it the last thing before going to bed at night.
Okay. Because I do it after the refining exercises, I always do it.
If you can, do your refining and then finally do the gold nugget before going to bed. So if we can create a vacuum and enter into that vacuum and go asleep, right?
Okay, that's
right?
wonderful to know.
The very kumbha creates the vacuum, and if we can create that kind of vacuum and just dissolve into that vacuum, maybe at the moment of death we can do the same thing then, if we practiced every night.
No, wonderful, because I do it in the early parts of the morning, 4 a.m. after refining, then I do it. I thought
so do it in the morning, but you add 1 minute of refining at night, and then do the gold nugget and go to sleep in that. You know that everything stops in the gold nugget, and in that stillness you just enter into sleep. Give yourself up.
That's so wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Rajan bhai, Nazia has put a message in the chat box.
Right.
And she says, today's session was so much profound and filled with deep wisdom. It is making so much sense to me inside me. Thank you so much, Rajan sir. I feel I needed to know this at this time.
Thank you. Thank you.
So maybe it was, that people in this group needed this wisdom at this time. That is why there was a break in the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras lecture. And you had to take this session. So if there are no questions, I would like to tell you something. Rajan bhai said that Soli bhai was very humorous and he would make everything very playful because everything around him, whatever happened, was full of joy. So once Bharat Pandya, who is very well known to Rajan bhai, he shared this thing with me that they were traveling in the Deccan Queen from Mumbai to Pune. And Soli bhai and Bharat bhai, and there's somebody who sat on the opposite seat. And Soli bhai just looked at him and, pointed his thumb like this. So this person felt very offended, but perhaps because of Soli bhai's age, he did not say anything. And after 10 minutes, the ticket examiner came and he started checking the ticket of every person, and this fellow did not have his ticket. So he tried very hard to find the ticket and he could not find it. And he kept telling this examiner that, look, I have purchased the ticket in this, that, but ticket examiner would not listen and he had to pay a hefty fine just to get a new ticket. So after that, when the ticket examiner had left, then this fellow looked at Soli bhai and Soli bhai was smiling. So he said, sir, did you know that I do not have a ticket? So Soli bhai looked at him and said, yes, that is what I have been trying to tell you, that you don't have the ticket. So he was like that, and he used to make everything, full of humor. And I was sitting with him when one lady came and she was huge, very, very fat. And she wanted some flower remedies for losing weight. So he gave her the medicine and he also told her some things. And then the next time she came, incidentally, I was also there. And one thing he had told her was that, Amma, you should not have food after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So she came back and then both were talking and he asked her, what is the kind of food restriction you are observing? So she gave him a long list of what all she is eating. So then he gave her the medicine again and he came back to me and he was laughing. So I asked him, why are you laughing? So he said, look, I told this lady to keep food restricted and not to eat anything after 4 o'clock. So today, when she came back to me, it has been a month and there is no difference. So I asked her, what is it that you are doing? And she gave me this whole list of all the nutritious things she is eating. So she is eating twice the amount of food that she was eating earlier. So how can she change? So I asked him, why don't you tell her? So then he was laughing. He said, no, next time she won't be able to climb the 6 floors. So I know she's not going to come to me again because he used to live in a building where his flat was on the 6th floor and the lift had been out of order for decades. So anybody who wanted to come to him, they had to climb the staircase to reach his flat. And he used to say that this is the tapasya people have to do to come to me because this is their penance. And unless they make this kind of austerity, they cannot come and see me. So he said, no, next time she is not going to come. So he was very humorous in every situation. He would just find a reason to smile and laugh at. It was really amazing to know someone like him who just knew everything.
Should I give one more incident, sir?
Yes, please.
Should I give you? when he was 11, people would come to him, okay, will I pass in the exam? Will I do this? And his father was very worried that what is this happening? And he's giving answers to everyone. So his father called one friend of his name was Mr. Fuzzle Boy. And he told Fuzzle Boy, you just find out this boy is doing, does he really know astrology or is it all nonsense? So Fuzzle Boy was very friendly in those days with India's topmost astrologer. His name was Surya Narayan Rao. And he had predicted the Second World War and all that. So he took him to Madras to meet Surya Narayan Rao. And he told Surya Narayan Rao that you have to take this boy's examination. Does he know astrology? So they went to meet him, Dr. Surya Narayan Rao, and he asked him all these questions. So this young boy says that I don't understand anything what you have asked me. But yesterday your wife banged her against the table and there is a big bandage over there. So how do you know this? He said, you practice your astrology, I practice mine. So,
it was really amazing. And another thing which I wanted to share was that, Rajan Bhai told us about how to be more aware in the action part, and we can become more aware if we just be more deliberate when we approach the teacup or the spring. What I found was that, sometimes it's just before we are going to eat food, we put our hand to the food. If we just become conscious of how we are holding the food, if we eat with our hands and hold the food in our fingers, we can really become aware of, is the food good for us? Is it going to be nutritious? Is it going to give us prana or not? So that can help us, develop that extra sensory perception or awareness about what is in our vicinity, what are the things around us. And sometimes I have found this practice to be very useful, that, just sitting quietly in the room and becoming aware of everything that is in the room with closed eyes, or just letting the awareness flow outside and scan the whole flat or the residence. And sometimes if we do that, we can just instinctively become aware of those areas which are carrying very high energy, which is very beneficial, or even those areas where something is blocking the prana or the energy. So it can develop, help us becoming more aware of what we are doing, where we are. And this will be very useful in spiritual growth. So I think that's about all that came to me that I wanted to share. And of course, one exercise that we were given in my guru's ashram once was that, we all eat sweets or chocolates, whatever. So what our teacher did in that course was that just small piece of chocolate, she made it into 10 pieces, another 10 small pieces. And he said, you just keep this piece underneath the tongue and don't eat, don't chew, just let it dissolve. And with closed eyes, become aware of the sense of sweetness as it is spreading in your being. You feel the sweetness with your being. And it was a very profound experience, because in just that's one minuscule piece of chocolate, it was like eating a whole bar of chocolate. And sometimes even when we eat a whole bar of chocolate, that kind of satisfaction would not come. So the idea, the whole understanding that came was that if we just become more aware of anything that we are doing, it can become more fulfilling, and it takes our presence to a higher level. From personality, we start moving towards a presence, and we can be with that presence, or we can sense that.
So I'll give one more incident, sir.
Yes, yes, sir.
There was this famous Gujarati author. His name was Pushkar Bhai, and his daughter lived in Bombay. So he had come to visit his daughter. So he phoned up Tavaria Sahib, I want to meet you. So he said, which day is it today? He says, Thursday, call me next Thursday. So next Thursday again he called. saying, call me next Thursday. So again, next Thursday, he called. And the next Thursday, he said, call me next Thursday. So he then called up Bhagwan over here. He knew Bhagwan very well. And he said, this is what he's doing. You cannot stay at your daughter's house for 3 weeks. I've been here in Bombay to meet him for 3 weeks. And he's not giving me any reply. So, of course, Bhagwan told him, Rajen is in Bombay, you call Rajen up. So he called me. So I said, see, I'm there this afternoon. We are making medicines together. So I used to write the labels and he would make the medicines. What you do, there's an Irani restaurant downstairs. They will take 1 rupee from you and you call. And I'll tell him that you are in this area. And why not meet him for 5 minutes? What is wrong? So he came and the phone rang in the afternoon. And the phone rang before I could go before him to pick up the phone. He's telling me, tell him to come up. So, this was the way he worked. And he used to play blind chess. And sometimes he would be playing blind chess with nearly 20 people. So every morning, it would be 1 move per day. So every morning that person would phone, this is my move. And he would then say, okay, this is my move. And then somebody else would phone, this is my move. And he would say, this is my move. There's no chess board or anything. All the chess board, what you call squares, have certain numbers or what you call notations. And he would just give his move that way. Anyway, one day we'll talk about all this. There's so much to talk about.
And about meeting people, he somehow allowed me to bring people to him. So he gave me some insight because there were many people who would come to him just because he would not project what he was. So people thought he is a big astrologer, he is somebody doing this, doing that. So one day somebody whom I took along and he thought, he was in some kind of trouble and he wanted some advice. And when suddenly Tavariaji said, no, I don't know anything. I don't know. Then he looks at me and he said, I don't know what this boy has told you about me. I am nobody. I don't know anything. Now this fellow was in a fix. He stood there in the drawing room. He did not even ask, Solibhai did not even ask him to sit. So he was standing there in a fix for about half a minute. And then he said, so then what do I do? So Solibhai said, you can go. So this fellow started moving away. I came down, I left him, and then I came back again. And then Solibhai was looking at me for some time. And then he said, I thought you were supposed to bring some good fellows to me. Where did you find this man? And it was a kind of understanding that was imparted to me by him that, look, everybody is not supposed to meet such an elevated soul. And then I started, even when I wanted to take people along with me, I started looking at it, doing a serious introspection within my own self that, do I need to take this gentleman or this lady to Soli Tavariaji or not? And if the command came from within that you do this, then only I asked. And then each time Solibhai said, okay, he gave a date and he said, you bring him. Otherwise, he did this thing with some fellows that, when I would ask and he would say, oh, ask next Thursday, then the next Thursday. Then I knew that this fellow is not supposed to come. Then I would not ask. And then there was this big naval officer who wanted to see Solibhai. So Solibhai told me that ask next Thursday, then next Thursday. Then I sort of gave up. And this fellow was very insistent. He said, no, I want to meet him. I want to meet him. Then finally one day I gave him Solibhai's number. So he called up and he must have said something, I am so-and-so, whatever. Then Solibhai shouted and he said, there is no Soli Tavaria here. Who has given you this number? Get lost. So this fellow was scared and he put the receiver down. Then he called me up and he said, see, I called up and this is the kind of response I received. So I told him that, look, I had asked Solibhai twice and he said, ask next time. your time has not come. And what did you tell him? He said, no, I only said that I am so-and-so, commander so-and-so. So I said, look, this is not the way to approach a master. So next day when I went to Soli Bhai, and he said, I don't know who this fellow is. He's some commander, and he called me up, and I could sense from his voice that he's a very egoistic fellow. So I gave him some treatment. So I told him, sir, I had only given him your number. So then he said, he thought for a while, now you can tell him to call me again. And he should not introduce himself as a commander. And then, of course, Solibai saw him and gave him a lot of teachings, gave him a lot of love. So this was his personality. I mean, this was the master, and he knew how to deal with people and what to do with them. Amazing, amazing experience. So I think it's a good way to end by remembering Solibai, because today is Dhanteras, and it's a day when we welcome abundance. And here was a man who was an epitome of abundance. He had everything. So we close, Rajan bhai?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We'll close with the prayer for universal well-being. Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhino Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyanto Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhave. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, Rajan bhai. Thank you, Vivek Bhav, chanted for us. A beautiful prayer. And thank you everyone for your participation. See you next.